Hello, free enterprise freakazoids. It's me again, Muppets in Space. Welcome to the Lunarian News Network, another edition of the Lunar Path. This is the community spotlight segment of the Lunar Path, which means that you all get a chance to ask questions of a person in the community and enjoy a closer look at them. And for the second edition of our community spotlight, we are shining the light on someone very special to the free enterprise community, a man who needs no introduction, but nevertheless will get one. b0ardface. Welcome aboard, Board.
Hello. Happy to be here.
How you doing? You look thinner than I'd imagined you to look.
Yeah, I've lost some weight, mostly in the anything but my face area.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Is it a specific workout regimen that you're using, or are you just cutting?
It's a keto.
Perfect. So how are things out in your neck of the woods there, Board? You hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there pretty okay. I was already a work from home employee before the whole shutdown thing started, so I was fortunate in that sense, and it hasn't been too much of a change in my day-to-day routine.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, a lot of people in the community have been saying similar things like that, so it's good to hear that it's not really affecting you too bad. But we didn't come here to talk about this. We came here to talk about you specifically and get a nice, neat, generalized look at you. So I want you to sort of go back in time with me. We're gonna grab my hand, and we're going to fly into the Wayback Machine to your childhood.
All right.
We're going all the way back to the beginning. And I mean, gaming. How big of a part of gaming how big of a part of your life did gaming play?
Pretty big. So when I was a child, our first video game system was the original NES. I remember we went down to visit our cousins who lived down in the States. I'm in Canada. We went down to visit our cousins, and they had a brand spanking new NES, and they were playing Super Mario Brothers 1. And I got home. My parents decided, hey, that would be a cool thing for us to have. So then we had Super Mario Brothers 1. And I actually spent a lot of my time growing up watching my brother play games more than me playing them myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we quickly got a subscription to Nintendo Power magazine, and the very first issue that came in the mail for us was the strategy guide for Final Fantasy 1. So definitely some foundation being laid there, because I read the crap out of that book.
Boy, a young Muppets would have loved access to that. My goodness. I didn't even know how to equip things in Final Fantasy 1 when I first played it. So, I mean, you're talking about games already that you grew up with. You know, what are some other games that you grew up with, and which ones stuck as a kid? Yeah.
Well, Final Fantasy, that whole series definitely is the formative franchise for sure. So it makes sense that I would devote all this time to making free enterprise. But what else did I even play? I'm good. See, that's what I think of most of the time, and I'm sure there were other games I enjoyed. But if anybody asks me about this, I'm like, oh yeah, Final Fantasy. Or like the other Square RPGs that got localized for the Super Nintendo. What, 2 of them?
I mean, there was Chrono Trigger was
Chrono Trigger made it.
Super Mario RPG.
Oh, Mario RPG, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, Mario RPG.
Okay, so.
But yeah, there's like 4. Yes,
did not believe in us. Oh, speaking of Nintendo Power, I was so mad because there's that one where they announced Final Fantasy 3 and the screenshots are clearly Final Fantasy 5, and then they didn't do that. So.
Yeah. So, what was it about the Final Fantasy series that attracted you as a kid? Let's just go right into that one, because that seems to be the one that you keep coming back to.
Yeah. I want to say, at least with Final Fantasy 1, honestly, that strategy guide really did a number on me. I don't know what it was about my child brain, but I spent a lot of time staring at this one page right in the middle of the book where just the pictures of the class changes. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, because there's a column on the left where it's like, there's your fighter, a thief, blah, 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 blah. The right side is your knight, your ninja, your master. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I would
okay. So you were fixated on the class change thing. That's interesting. Is there an element of, say, like growing up that excited you as a kid looking at that?
I think maybe it was just cool for like me to like look at these characters that I thought the character designs were really interesting, and then like see, oh man, they become even better. It's like the whole Digimon evolution thing, or the
Right, right.
uh,
It's
Power
more
Rangers Zord
power.
thing, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get this. More
that
power is
that
always
fundamental Dragon Ball principle that carries through.
right, right, right. So, when you were a kid, was there anything specifically that you found yourself gravitating towards about a game? Was there any sort of element to a game that you would find more favorable than others, or any style of gaming that you found more interesting than others?
Hmm. I think I definitely avoided playing the platformers because they scared me too much. I would just like be
Right.
really anxious running and like into enemies and things. I'm like, I would like maybe play 11. It's like your turn now. You do that.
Yeah,
I did not have
yeah.
the stomach for it as a very, I guess, overly sensitive child. Um, I liked games with story because I could like they would capture my imagination, and then I would like make
Okay.
up additional stories to go on with it. So I guess back on the NES, yes, obviously Final Fantasy. I actually didn't play much Zelda. Seems like I should have been into that, but I think action in general made me squeamish. I like playing puzzle
Sure.
games. Puzzle games are like they're kind of action. Tetris is like sort of actionish, but
Or like Pipe Dream.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely play Pipe Dream. And for some
I
reason, like
yeah.
Super Off Road, and
Super off-road.
yeah, I played a lot of Super Off Road.
The exception that proves the rule right there. I love it.
Yeah, I have a weird history with games, I guess.
Well, sure, but I mean, games. The taste in games changes from moment to moment. It waxes and wans with moods and whatever. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and to that end, what do you find yourself gravitating towards in games now?
Now, well,
Oh, Adventures
actually,
of Lolo, Neobari, yes. Oh,
didn't play
shout
that one
outs to
either.
that.
What I play now, I really like puzzlers. Definitely still puzzlers.
Okay.
I don't play a lot of JRPGs anymore. I just feel like they take up a lot of time. The systems are really, really complicated. I
Okay.
like where I harken back to the SNES era of RPG complexity because I think that's where I wanted to be. Um, so yeah, definitely puzzlers. I've been playing a lot of casual Splatoon just
Okay.
because Salmon Run, the cooperative mode, and there's the only thing I do, and I like cooperative online gaming way better than I do competitive gaming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So-
My wife got me into Animal Crossing right now, so I
Uh,
guess the big takeaway here is that I'm a filthy casual.
So you're more into cooperative gaming than solo gaming.
Well, more cooperative than competitive. I
Oh,
prefer
more
single player
cooperative than
experiences.
competitive.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But
Okay.
single player is definitely the way I like to game.
Okay. Yeah. And do you found that your taste in games and what you looked for in a game changed as you got older, or did it just kind of get galvanized and more solidified?
I think it definitely changed. It's hard to
Yeah.
say. Again, it's hard to say what I liked to play as a kid because I spent a lot of time watching people play rather than playing myself. Like most of my
Huh.
formative experiences with even Final Fantasy 4 and 6 were watching my brother play through it rather than playing them themselves. And
Was
I don't know.
that because he wouldn't let you, or was it because you just preferred being a spectator?
I think I just preferred being a spectator.
Huh.
And then after he would play a bunch of it, I would go through and try playing myself sometimes. I remember being really sad once because I accidentally saved over his one save game that had the silence staff in it, and I remember
Harsh.
and because I thought, hey, this is the rare staff, we've never seen it before, and if you look in the instruction manual, it says it's a rare staff. So
Mhm.
yeah. Um,
Yeah. So you preferred to be on the sidelines and sort of cheering. Was there
Yeah.
anything about that you preferred specifically versus playing? Like what was it about being a spectator and watching your brother play through those things? Like, was there an air of vicariousness that you got out of it, or did you prefer to be a support role, or what was it that made you eschew the controller for the sidelines most of the time?
I think part of it was that I was very anxious as a gamer, as I mentioned before, with the platformers and more actiony titles.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't handle it. And I think it was just more comfortable for me to be able to experience these things vicariously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? And nowadays, you were talking about playing Splatoon.
Yep.
I
Of all
can't
the
say
things you
that.
thought we'd be talking about today, yeah.
Yeah, Splatoon. Yeah, well, it just goes to show you should never judge a book by its I guess wires and face.
Yeah. I am made of cardboard, so that really hits close to home.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know, but a very nice, even cardboard right there. It's just enough of a crease for the mouth. It's very nice.
Yeah, I've got kind of a cardboard dimple going on there. Yeah.
So, would you say that video games in general have kind of helped shape the way that you grew up and shaped the way that you think? Being
Absolutely.
Yeah, and being somebody who tended to watch versus play, like what were you getting out of the experience that you found shaped you in the most fundamental ways?
I think so. I've always been kind of drawn to the more creating things side of things. I think by sitting back and observing, I was able to like absorb more of the full experience, not from a gameplay perspective, but from a how things look, how things sound,
Oh,
and like paying attention to the story. And I know you get all that experience when playing the game too, but I think sitting back from a distance is more a little bit like looking at a painting and like studying the how would I draw something like this on my own.
so you were always interested in the composition of a game rather than
Yeah, I
experiencing it
suppose.
as a player. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense given the nature of what you ended up doing with this game and this
Mhm.
randomizer. So it sounds to me like you've always had sort of an interest in how something is created and how something can be experienced overall, which fantastically goes right into my next segment,
Ooh.
which is about programming. Did you always have
Hmm.
an interest in it?
Yeah. My parents were definitely keen on getting me onto this big new thing that was computers. My dad was an electrical engineer.
Okay.
He worked at the pretty much the same company for his whole life,
Mm.
and so yeah, he made sure to get us computers. We skipped the Commodore, but our first computer was like an 286.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I would go to the library and I would pick up books on BASIC and just like transcribe the games in there directly into the BASIC on my computer, which sometimes was weird because the books from the library were older for older versions of BASIC that were not 100% compatible. So I wish I
Right.
could say that I was that enterprising young kid who could figure out how to translate them to work in the new version, but I didn't. I just gave up. And yeah, so we always had computers, and I remember my first experience with the internet was when our dad would take us into his workplace on the weekends and let us use the internet that they had set up
Wow.
at work. And we were like, "Oh, cool! We get to look at all the stuff, and we can take home whatever we can fit on this handful of 1.44 meg floppies. Great!"
Do you
Which was pretty
remember? Do you remember saving things like in a partition of like multiple discs? Like,
Oh,
did you ever have to zip up a file and then save it to like 6 discs?
I feel
Because
like I did with like PK zip or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
I just remember my childhood 386 computer,
Mhm.
all the way back in 1993 or 92 or whatever it was, and using those discs to like just stacks of them, just absolute stacks of them to transfer a single solitary program from one thing to another.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible.
So you always had an interest in programming. You had access to the internet at a young age. What did you do on the internet at that age?
I was mostly just excited that there was someone else I could like look to for information about Sailor Moon because nobody in my life had any.
Mhm.
And yeah, I got involved early on with the I don't know if you ever went to the unofficial Squaresoft homepage
I
way
never did.
back in the
No,
day. That was
no.
kind of like Final Fantasy, the fans central kind of website way back
Okay, okay, I
in
see.
the early, like not even Web 1.0. We're talking like Web 0.4 or something. And yeah, and back then I got involved with the mod music scene there because it was bandwidth was too slow. People didn't have the space to trade MP3s or even had access to like the CDs to rip MP3s of video game soundtracks. So the way we traded music was to recreate it in like mod format, an S3M format, and
Hmm.
then distribute it that way. And I'm sure if you look on the internet, you can find that stuff, and it's very embarrassing if you find it now.
Outstanding. You mentioned Sailor Moon stuff. It's
Uh huh.
favorite Sailor Scout.
Favorite Sailor Scout? Mercury.
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 Okay. That was a community question from N Dodo.
Oh, okay, okay. Well, I'm happy to give people the information they really want to know about Free Enterprise,
That's
and
right.
that information is that Sailor Mercury is the best. Yes.
So, what was the first time you ever tried to program something
Program something.
yourself?
Hmm. So way back, eventually, I talked about transferring stuff from BASIC onto the computer. Eventually, I discovered that QBasic and DOS came with like Nibbles and Gorillas, those two games. And the
Okay.
first thing I did was, instead of trying to create a program on my own, was just sort of hack those, and
Ah,
in the most ridiculous ways possible. So Nibbles got a really quick makeover into like everything is flashing colors all the time, and it really hurts your eyes, but it's cool because I did it.
great.
Uh, adding like level skip cheats and creating my own bonus levels and working through
Mhm.
it that way was how I learned to do cool stuff there. And then
So
just
you
doing ridiculous stuff with gorillas, like bananas are just thrown at like 200 times the speed or something dumb like that.
so you started programming with modding something. That's
Yeah,
fascinating. So you've
yeah.
always kind of had an interest in modding.
I
Um,
don't know if it was an interest in modding so much as an interest in plagiarism. There's a lot of stuff when I think back at it. I did a lot of stuff as a kid where it's all, instead of making my own thing, I'll take this thing that already exists and just make it weirder, and then like I don't know, maybe show it to people and say, "Here's a new thing." And it's like I didn't as a kid, I didn't have that switch that goes, "This is not a thing you should do."
well,
You know?
and I'm going to offer something to you here, Boardface, is
Uh-huh.
that there's a similarity between doing something like that with, say, a game that you experience that has its
Uh-huh.
own mode or story or whatever, and producing a piece of fan fiction out of an existing
Fair,
story or set of characters too.
fair.
So, and there are probably a great deal of embarrassing things on the internet that were published from people's childhoods about that too. Uh, so, I mean, that's to me just the same as modding a game or whatever. And that would be something that kind of interests me is taking an idea and putting your own personal perspective into it. Which brings me to the next thing. What is it about modding a game that interests you the most?
Uh, I guess that it more depends on the exact kind of mod I'm making. Uh,
Okay.
with Free Enterprise specifically, just it was a combination of getting to learn how to do SNES ROM hacking and also being able to do lots of cool stuff and learn about Final Fantasy IV, which is my favorite Final Fantasy. So that was
Okay.
amazing. But like back when I was a kid, like when I was modding the QBasic stuff, I just did it because I wanted to see what weird stuff I could do.
Right. Oh man,
And
I
then
remember QBasic.
uh, I guess it's weird to like talk about interest in modding because like I've described that initial experience in modding and I've talked about free enterprise, but I think in between those two there wasn't actually that much of it at all, if any.
Well, what did you find yourself interested in between those two moments then? If it wasn't modding or
Well,
creation.
after eventually I did develop an interest in creating my own programs and my own games, and I did that a lot. First when I was young through game creation software, and then eventually as just like programming from the ground up. And I don't know, just I've always loved making my own stuff and being able to put my own spin on things.
Okay. Yeah.
And I hope it comes across in free enterprise that every now and then there's something super weird that could generally generally comes from my brain.
So when you're developing a game or developing a mod or embarking on any of this sort of thing, what do you first approach it with? What's the first thought you approach it with?
Hmm.
Or how
Usually
about
there's sorry.
no, please continue.
Usually there's like some fundamental idea or like moment in my head that I want to make sure exists. And everything kind of gets built down around from that kind of idealized vision of this is a snapshot of like I can see this one moment that happens in the game and I want that to be cool and that to happen. Or, I want
Huh.
this kind of feeling to be the basis of everything. It's a little bit nebulous, and obviously as you go through, game development is an iterative process. As you go through and you'll discover new things about it as you go, and that's always exciting. But generally I always try to make sure there's some germ of an idea that really excites me so that it kind of guides me, as well as just kind of make sure that I remember what I'm doing this for, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, well, absolutely, absolutely, and so you get that idea, and the seed is planted, and you kind of have an idea of where you wish to go out from there. What would you say is the most important trait to possess as a game developer embarking on that journey?
An immunity to starvation.
Just don't need food or sleep. Just go.
No.
Night do. Thank you for the raid.
My game development takes a crap ton of work. And like, so I've worked as a professional game dev for a number of years. I'm not currently, but I have on and off. And it's like, at the times when you go off of it, you're like, oh yeah, this is what a normal job is like. And then you go into the game dev, and there's just like a lot of persistence, a lot of dealing with negative feedback, a lot of just kind of I don't know. I want to say that if you're going to be a game dev, obviously you're in it because you love games, but you have to love them enough to keep it up, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. It totally makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. You were just talking about negative feedback and all that stuff. Would you say that a resilience to feedback is an important trait to possess as a game developer?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I there are like certain moments of clarity that you get when you're experiencing that. Like, I remember when I released a game on the App Store, on the iOS App Store once, and I saw this one review that's like 4 stars, and it's like, if you do this, and this, and he's like itemizes like 5 months worth of work, then I'll give you bump up this rating up to 5 stars, and it's like,
oh,
wow, I sure want that star number 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it's not like I don't want to like paint the entire group video gaming community with a broad brush, because obviously there are really great communities out there and things, but like it's that whole thing. it's really easy to let like one bit of negative feedback override like a
Right.
lot of positive feedback and things, right? So it's just about making sure you keep perspective and all that.
Seems reasonable. You were talking about as a kid to nowadays that JRPGs you've kind of fallen out of because they're a little too complex and stuff. When you're programming and modding something, though, do you approach the games that you are creating or that you wish to change in a different way? Like, do you look for complexity, or do you look at it as a sort of person who experiences games as a player?
Um, I'm I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. Sorry.
Uh, Question being that what do you find yourself gravitating towards as far as the style of game that you wish to program or mod? Is that influenced by yourself as a player, or do you find yourself interested in something else as a developer?
Um, well, more specifically with free enterprise, a lot of what I like working about this is the technical challenge of it.
Okay.
And when it comes to like the complexity issue, that is something I try to keep in mind a bit. Like speaking with a very specific example, the flag system can easily become extremely complicated and out of control if like left unchecked. And I'm always trying to find ways to streamline that a little bit more. But giving people a lot of control is also a good thing. I guess when you're making a mod like Free Enterprise, it's about, since you're modifying an experience, you want to lean more on the side of giving players more control because it's a modification. It's sure I can modify it in one way and try to make an experience, but fundamentally, since we're about taking something that exists and changing it, then it feels like you should let people have control over how they change it, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
So we get to nowadays. Started out with you as a kid, come to nowadays. History of modding, history of game development. Always an interest in it. Always an interest in RPGs, and that leads us to this right here. You get into randomizer creation. Were you always
Yeah.
interested in creating a randomizer?
No. So I had the way Free Enterprise got started was I had I'd heard about and known about the Link to the Past randomizer, and I thought that was a really cool idea and really clever. But I had never thought about applying it to other games until I stumbled onto Crow's stream one day while he was working on Lunarian Shuffle, and I actually did not know anything about ROM hacking up to that point. I started learning a little bit because I wanted to contribute to that project. And from there, I got connected into the Final Fantasy IV speedrunning Discord, where they have a channel where they talk about the hacks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it was through discussions in there that we hit upon the idea for Free Enterprise. So that was where that all came from. So randomizer creation just snuck up on me pretty quickly, I guess.
That's fair. That's fair. And why open world? Why an open world FF4?
When we were talking in the Discord channel, we were talking about different takes that could happen with a Final Fantasy IV randomizer, because at this point there were like 2 already released and like another 2 or so in development, and they all had very different takes on it, which is something I've always found interesting about Final Fantasy IV randomizers, is that there's so many different ones. Like Lunarian Shuffle will go through and keep the story path but randomize your character setups. And then there was the ancient cave style one, Beyond Babel.
Yeah,
and then Pink Puff was making kind of more of a traditional Beyond Chaos sort of randomizer that just kind of mixes up the data. And we were talking, and one of the things that like I've always felt was ideal about how the Zelda randomizers work is because they're so open world structured. And then we were like thinking about what could you do to like create that sort of feel in Final Fantasy IV. We hit on the idea of just starting with the airship and seeing what would happen. And it turns out when you just give the players the airship at the start of the game and let them do whatever they want, the ultimate effect is that the game is really broken. So
yeah, it's about right.
So yeah, And then so there were ideas of like trying to fix up everything so that it could work as best as it could. Pink Puff spearheaded that project for a while. Then
Okay.
eventually he got busy, and I decided that I wanted to try to take my own stab at it. I had some ideas about what I wanted to do, and so I trucked at it, and now we're here.
Now, was there ever a different game that you wanted to make a rando for? I know that you said that randomizers kind of snuck up on you, but was there ever something in the back of your head that was like, I would want to make a randomizer for this
I
if I
mean,
could?
ever since Free Enterprise, I've had like one or two ideas, but I'm pretty sure they are technically impossible.
Hey, let's talk about the impossible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Okay, well, the first one is that I thought Blaster Master would be a good idea for a randomizer. And at the time, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's already set up as kind of like a Metroidvania, and like with that whole figure out where you're supposed to find World 4.
Okay.
If you don't know what you're doing the first time around, turns out the answer is go all the way back to the start and hover. Yeah, but I think one didn't exist for Blaster Master at the time, but I think one does now. So thanks. I'm not sure who created it, but props to them for keeping me from having to learn NES hacking.
Fair enough.
And the other one, it's an NES project.
Okay.
I have ideas about it. I really, it's in kind of on my long-term radar to see if it's even technically feasible. But if it is, I kind of don't want to tip my hand on it.
Understood. No, that's totally fair. That's totally fair. Yeah. So all the way back to Free Enterprise here. How many hours do you think you've put into this thing?
Oh God.
Do you even want to name a number like that?
Well, let's see. I can tell you that since I started working on the code that would eventually form the basis of it to the 0.1 release was a time span of about 6 months plus.
My goodness.
Yeah. So it was definitely an interesting thing. Like it was on and off during that time because at that time I was like, I don't know if anyone's gonna care about this when it comes out.
Yeah.
And then after that, I mean, there have been periods of time where I've been able to put a lot of work into it, and then like long stretches between. You've noticed that some of the releases have longer periods of time between them when I don't have as much time to work on them. So it's on and off, but I couldn't even put a finger on the number of hours at this point. It's pretty crazy to think about how far it's come.
Of course. Well, and it's sort of like it's become a pretty insular, like, well, not insular. It's become instilled in your life almost at this point. Would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely there. It's weird. I like going from project to project. And most of the time when I do projects, it's just like a little thing just for me or for my house or whatever. So I've never really had kind of a ongoing player base before, so that's been an interesting adjustment. Usually I would be on to the next thing or the next two things by now, but being able to, it's not like I haven't been doing other stuff, but being able to come back to Free Enterprise periodically and add more stuff is just kind of a nice feeling.
Yeah.
So doesn't have to be over, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, let's get deeper into the Free Enterprise specific stuff here.
Sure.
When you were developing this randomizer, how do you approach achieving a balance between ease and difficulty?
Achieving a balance between ease and difficulty. I listen to the people playing it.
So, like a small group of testers, people that don't normally play Final Fantasy IV. Like where do you look for your information?
Well, way back in the early days of the randomizer, I would just lurk as many Twitch streams as I could and see what was happening there. I was very fortunate that that was happening fairly often. So a lot of the early progress is based on the feedback that I got from the Final Fantasy IV speedrunners and from watching people play.
Of course.
So like things like treasure discard and all that. It's like, oh, this is very obviously taking up half the stream is just throwing everything in the garbage kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just watch and see a lot of pain points. And about that whole thing we talked about earlier with me observing, I feel like sometimes me watching people play, I can see things that's frustrating them, and then like, but with a little bit of distance that allows me to think about how to solve it. Versus if I'm playing in the situation, maybe I'm feeling the same frustration, having the same issues, but because I'm frustrated by it, I'm not thinking about solving it. I guess I'm just thinking about, I wish this was done now so I could go on to the next thing. So maybe being an observer gives me that kind of distance that I need to address those things.
Do you find as an observer when somebody is frustrated by something, occasionally thinking to yourself, maybe they should be frustrated with something?
Yes, I mean, so there's this kind of general wisdom for customer feedback that's like always listen to them, but like they don't have the answer. You know, listen to what they're saying, but they don't necessarily have the solution. And I think that's just something you have to keep in mind, because a customer or a client or whatever, you know, what they're saying is valid, the reactions are valid, but they don't always have the whole picture in mind. So
Understood.
yeah, it's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, you know, you'll see people who are frustrated, and you're like, yeah, unfortunately, that kind of is the way it's got to be for now.
So you're watching people go through this. You're getting all sorts of feedback. You put something out there, sort of see what it's like. Are there any hard concessions you have had to make when creating this randomizer, like things you would like to implement but that no one else wants, or no one else feels fair, feels that it's fair, etc., that sort of thing?
Well, let's see. I mean, the biggest thing that's been taken out because of feedback to date is the hint system. And I'll admit that the hint system.
Oh, okay.
Way back when that was a whole snafu. And honestly, because I'm not as much of a player as I am an observer, I'm definitely not a speedrunner. The hint system was definitely not well done for what it needed to do.
Okay.
I think I got a lot lucky with a lot of my design decisions in early free enterprise because of how well they seem to have worked out. But honestly, I was more thinking of it as a technical challenge at that point. So the fact that it happened to be fun to play is like gravy. Yeah. So the hint system is something that was pulled after some pretty negative and immediate feedback.
Okay.
And we have been kind of thinking, every now and then we think about how we want to bring it back. Rivers and I have conversations about that. But I don't know, nothing new has jumped out at me. So like, we both want to get hints back in some form, but we just haven't figured out the right way to do it.
Okay. Yeah. No, that actually answers a few questions for me right there. That's great. That's great. So let's go back to a statement you made a little bit ago: cooperative versus competitive gameplay. And you said that you found yourself being more of a cooperative game player, somebody who didn't like to game competitively. But when you created this randomizer, did you intend for it to be competitively played?
I was trying to create something that was wacky and neat. I part of the speedrunning community before Free Enterprise. So a lot of that kind of the culture and the mindset is still a little bit kind of outside my wheelhouse. I think I've come to understand it a bit, but yeah, it never would have occurred to me that people would like even race randomizers or even just normal speedruns. Like I'd seen races and stuff on GDQs and all that, but I had no idea that there was this kind of competitive community within speedrunning.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, surprise, surprise. So the one time the first community race that Free Enterprise did on SRL, and I think it was like 25-ish people, and I'm like, what?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But don't you guys know that it's really random? You know,
it is. But there's a method to the randomness.
There is.
Yeah. So, you're developing this thing. You're talking about getting feedback, things that may or may not have worked out and stuff. What do you feel was the biggest mistake you made while developing this randomizer?
Biggest mistake I made.
Mm.
I feel like I should have been aiming to open source it sooner.
Ooh.
If that makes any sense.
Yes. So allow for more eyes on the code itself.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So I'll admit that part of what I enjoy about working on Free Enterprise is that it's my own thing. And I kind of enjoy being like the solo coder with like, hey, it's all mine, hey. And I get to like hide things from people sometimes and surprise them when the stuff comes out. Like April Fools has been a great outlet for me on that. So I've always had this kind of instinct of not wanting to share the code a little bit, but I've always known that eventually I do want to pass it, like have it be open and let people do what they want with it. Okay. And I think if I had thought about that earlier on, then I would have set things up differently. Because while I do want to eventually still open source the code, it's not in a state where it's something that's easy for other people to use.
Got it.
And yeah, because I was learning a lot as I went in early development. So there's like things that need to be reformed in order to make this reasonable. But yeah, I think that would be, it's kind of a weird answer, but that's what I think about a lot.
No, that's great. That's great. You're talking about, opening it up and getting more perspective on it. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. And the flip side of this question, of course, is what's an early design decision that you made that you feel lucky worked out?
So the boss randomization that exists in Free Enterprise today is pretty close to what was there in the 0.1. That system has not changed very much. It's another one of the systems that needs to be rewritten in order to be like more flexible, more usable. But yeah, I did that on a whim, kind of towards the initial release of 0.1. That feature didn't exist until very close to release, when I thought, I wonder what this would be like, because if I put a wyvern in the mist cave, what would happen? And it turns out that the answer is Mega Nuke still wrecks your face.
Yes, sure does, every time.
But then, like, once I did that, I hit upon the idea of changing the overworld sprites, and that's what made everything, like, initially hilarious to me. I think since it's been so long since that first release, that effect has worn off a bit, but I think the first time you see, like, the Kaipo guards burst out of the water and the watery pass is still kind of a unique experience. And it's those little touches that I love putting into Free Enterprise when I can.
Casual Geek Dave is asking, do you have any plans to follow up on the Final Fantasy IV quality of life patch as time goes on?
Yes, that's on my list, definitely, for sure. There's a lot of stuff that's gone into Free Enterprise now that could do very well in vanilla, and that is something I would like to do, for sure. It's just, again, a matter of finding time.
What addition to Free Enterprise were you the most excited for the players to get to use?
Which edition? I was definitely excited when, I'm excited about everything for different reasons, you know? 0.2, I was like really hoping that the Z flag would take off because I wasn't sure it would.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
To tell you of my predictive abilities.
It's only like the most loved part of the whole thing now, too.
0.1, I made a point of not documenting that the harp song was random so that people could discover that on their own, and that was fun.
It was always random. Okay.
Yeah. I was super excited when we got duplicate characters and Scala's brilliant fab palettes out in there. I was definitely stoked on like March 31st, waiting for midnight to roll over and to see if anyone would notice the 8-bit.
Oh God, yeah, the 8-bit. It hurt me so deep. I loved it, but it hurt me so deep.
I was pretty anxious about the release of objectives because I wasn't sure how well that would go over. Like, it obviously is popular, and I wanted to give
Mhm.
people that level of control, but I felt like it was kind of a really, really complicated system. And I was like, I wonder if I've overdone this, or I don't know. But the
Nah.
point is, I like being able to surprise people. So
Yeah.
every release has something that I'm like secretly, fingers crossed. Oh man, this is gonna be
Cool.
good.
Uh, what was one of the funniest or weirdest bugs that came up during the development of Free Enterprise?
Ooh. Oh man, I should have done my research. Ugh. There was that one point where talking to Octoman would warp you to the end credits.
What?
Okay, so each map tile has like a set of bits defining its properties.
Okay.
Desks have a special bit that is set so that you can talk over them to the NPC on the other side.
Sure.
By the water tiles in the watery pass have this bit set
Oh,
for some other reason. So if you try to talk to the tile in front of the Octomam NPC, it was like triggering something because I thought you
oh
were
my
talking over a desk to an NPC that didn't have an event assigned to it. And then it was like trying to figure out what it would do, and it's like scanning through the garbage data, and eventually it landed on, oh, I know, I'll warp you into the ending.
That's wonderful. Okay, well that would pass. that would definitely qualify right there.
Yeah, that was pretty early on, for sure.
Oh man, yeah, that's about as credit warpy as it gets right there. So, are there any features you would like to implement to Free Enterprise, or perhaps are working on implementing that you would care to share with anyone? Or do you
Cared.
prefer not to tip your hand?
I generally prefer not to tip my hand, but I've been feeling like maybe I should kind of pick and choose those battles a little bit.
Okay.
So,
Mhm.
generally speaking, I've talked earlier about how the boss randomizer I would like to kind of restructure under the hood so that it's capable of more things. I'm glad that it's like held up so far this way, but there's like limitations on things like you can't have duplicate bosses with the way it's set up, or you can't kind of have
Uh-huh.
your like use other encounters in their place. It doesn't work the way it's set up.
Right.
So that's something I would like to do. For similar reasons, the core randomization logic needs to be rewritten so that in order to support some features like it, if we wanted to have some different sorts of challenges where if you want to put key items in like character locations, or if you want to put like have teleporters between, like turn on the teleporter between Babel, Upper Babel, Lower Babel, and the Moon, which is like an idea we've been playing around with.
Mm.
Right now, the core randomization doesn't have a concept of you can get to the moon but only on foot, that kind of thing. So it's
Right.
that sort of, it's a lot of stuff needs to be redone under the hood in order to push forward
Sure.
with some of the cooler ideas we've got. Aside from that, I have I've always had a soft spot for the filthy casual in me that every now and then I think about ways of trying to get like GBA remake items into the game. So that's
Uh,
something I have to think about. Um we Rivers and I hit upon an idea recently that I had to ask Scala if she'd be willing to do a crap ton of graphics work for, so stay tuned for that if it comes out.
okay. Okay. Yep.
But yeah, that one I'll keep under the hat, I think.
Understood. Understood. What's your favorite quality of life improvement that was made for this game so far?
Favorite quality of life. It's hard to beat the basic dash speed.
Yeah, it really is.
Thanks to myself 086 for coding that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't it's going back and playing vanilla, man. Like, oh god. It is
yeah.
a crawl now.
In terms of stuff I'm really proud about how it came out. I was chuffed when quick trash mode I got managed to get working.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the item descriptions definitely
Oh
I'm
yeah,
very pleased with.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
and that's been a big one for a lot of people who are just getting into it too. That don't perhaps have all of the information in their heads already. It's been big. I've seen a lot of people use that.
Yeah. But I think if I was a player, then the answer I'd have to give is encounter toggle.
Eki says, "What are your thoughts on randomizing character movesets or adding abilities of characters to their overworld sprites, and possibly adding War Mech?"
Oh, okay. Number one, I'm pretty sure Warmech is in the Z pool.
Truth, it is.
Uh, Number two, let's see. Well, I already just added overworld jumping for Kane,
Yeah, jump,
so
push me to
I'm gonna
jump.
I'm gonna call that one done.
Yeah.
I guess I could always program like summon Chocobo, and then you just a yellow Chocobo where you are.
Uh,
Let's see. What was the first one again? What's the first part of the question again?
thoughts on randomizing character move sets,
Character move sets.
as in having Dark Knight Cecil with power.
I mean,
Fusoya can bluff.
I mean, it's theoretically easy to do, but I wonder about, because the kind of unofficial design philosophy of Free Enterprise has always been like try to keep things closer to vanilla where you can, which is why
Right.
we haven't done things like started every character at the same level and like programmed low level stats tables for them so that everyone starts out kind of equal. Things like that. And I think once you start changing the movesets on characters, I mean, it's not that big of a change, but it starts to change the identity of the character
Right.
a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for right now, I like having like your defined character, what tools you have in terms of characters.
Sure. So you were talking about wanting to keep things as close to vanilla as possible. What was the sort of idea behind that philosophy?
Well, I mean, that's gradually weakened as time has gone on and free enterprise has become its own thing. But definitely way back in the early day, I thought it would be, I wanted to reward knowledge of vanilla Final Fantasy IV when it came to playing free enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that the more that you tweak the balance just so to your liking, the less true that is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. Do you feel like perhaps the balance is already tweaked too far in that direction to reward a player for vanilla FF4 knowledge?
Um, I don't think so. I think as people have gone on and developed, as the community has developed a lot of skill playing Final Fantasy 4 and Free Enterprise, I think what's become is that it's about rewarding knowledge of how the game's mechanics work so much as the specific details of what item does what or what character does what. So, which is why I wouldn't completely rule out moveset randomization right now.
Sure.
But it also does feel like kind of a small thing because, especially with the J abilities, like half of them you don't use all the time. And if you put like bluff on Kane, it's like, great. What's Kane bluffing about?
Well, you have to give him MP then,
Hmm.
and then you have to give him a spell.
He does have a cast animation.
Yeah, that's true. He does have a cast animation. So, do you ever play your own randomizer?
Not really. Again, this is kind of an offshoot of the observation thing, and I rely definitely a lot on community feedback and talking to Rivers and Invan and the testing team and everyone to figure out from a gameplay perspective what to do, and then I kind of reserve my secrecy stuff for the push B to jump sort of days.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mostly what interests me most about making Free Enterprise is the technical challenge of it. So I've played like segments of it as I'm testing, but I don't really run seeds. No.
Mm-hmm. But you did beforehand to sort of understand the cause and effect consequences of things, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would test definitely every part of the game piecemeal, but
Sure.
start to finish rarely, or not, at least not without cheating my way through
Mhm.
HP
Well,
hacks and
right,
stuff.
right. Would you say it's important for a developer to play what they make?
Um, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I realize it may come across as a bit hypocritical me saying that right now after what I just said,
Well,
but it's just being, play to an extent. But I think what's weird about free enterprise for me is because how much of it right now is focused on competitive and speedrunning and stuff. Since I'm not that kind of player,
mm,
so which is why the ideas I come up with tend to lean more towards like the casual playthrough and the silliness stuff, and why I rely on the community more when it comes to tweaking and competitive and balance and all that. So it's important to play the game, but also, you know, to understand what kind of gamer you are and who you're making it for.
right. Okay. No.
And for me, with free enterprise, those two things don't necessarily line up. So
So, would you say that it's more important to know that you are making this for other people to experience rather than for yourself to experience?
y-
Like that's a greater, like it's more about the subjectivity of other players than it is about your experience and your core like wants and needs.
hmm
Yeah.
yeah, obviously you always want to pay attention to feedback.
Hmm.
And I think I'm just thinking about how, with my history of being more of a game observer than a game player, I think, in a weird sense, the way I play Free Enterprise is by watching people play Free Enterprise. And so, in a sense, I am kind of creating that game, air quotes, for myself. I would air quote on camera, but I don't have hands. Um,
Well,
yeah, for me, creating the game of Free Enterprise is creating what I enjoy watching people play,
okay. Yeah.
as opposed to me playing myself in a weird sort of sense.
So, what are some other randomizers that impress you?
Oh,
That have come
jeez.
out specifically, like in the last couple of years
Oh,
or
well,
few
I don't have a good sense of the
Okay.
timelines on things. I'm still absolutely gobsmacked that the Link to the Past Super Metroid randomizer is even technically possible.
Yeah, yeah.
I just don't understand what's happening there.
Yeah. When I learned that that was a thing, my brain split in half, and I went, "Nope, never, not once." But it's amazing that people can play that and play it so fast. It's incredible.
Yeah. I ooh, I am really glad that Free Enterprise has inspired some more open world style RPG
Oh,
randos,
mhm.
for sure. I'm really happy that that's become a thing, and those
Yeah,
randomizers are doing great.
yeah. Career Day for FF5
Uh-huh.
became a thing.
Mhm.
Worlds Collide for FF6. That was
Mhm.
something that I remember the Saban talking about a long time ago. At it finally got off the ground. It's pretty cool. Is there any other game that you would like to see get the free enterprise style open world treatment to it?
Ooh. Gosh, I have to what was I
You
thinking
can say
about?
no.
Untitled Goose Game.
I would totally play an open world Untitled Goose Game. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. 10 out of 10. Yeah, you win. b0ardface, congratulations. You've won the interview. Well done. Uh, So, have you considered taking all of your knowledge that you've gained from your trials and tribulations of free enterprise and applying it to a brand new game, from the ground up, your game from conception, not a mod, just a whole new thing?
Hmm. Well, I mean, again, because I'm not a competitive racing gamer, I don't know if I would create this kind of game as a
Sure.
kind of a ground up thing. I mean, I have, in terms of like doing things based on what I've learned doing free enterprise, I've always had this kind of, I've wondered if I want to create like a story ROM hack of Final Fantasy IV, or if
Right.
I
Right.
want to create like a more hackable version of Final Fantasy IV. Just now that I've expanded a lot
Sure.
of systems and stuff, because I know that there are people who are interested in creating interesting hacks of Final Fantasy IV, but they keep running into limitations of like characters or enemies or whatever.
Right.
So just knowing what I have now and being able to create something that's much easier for them to work with is also kind of interesting to me.
Hmm.
Or like I've had the ideas to, if I could take some of what I've learned and create a more general ROM hacking tool for myself that I can use to create other hacks. That's also been a thing
Huh.
that's percolating in my brain, but again,
So like
the
almost a
time.
hacking gateway or a
Yeah,
kit.
yeah. So Free Enterprise Under the Hood is based on another tool that I wrote for this development that lets you kind of specify a series of hacks to Final Fantasy IV as a series of like text files, basically. And
Oh.
yeah, and I've wondered if I could. That workflow I find has worked really well for me, and I've always wondered if I could generalize it and make it a more general ROM hacking tool.
So we're talking about what?
I was going to say, I
Please.
will say that I have thought about in the future when I do make games being keeping the speedrunner in mind and making sure that there's, if somebody wants to run it, that it's nice for them.
I mean, I'm going to tell you this right now, b0ardface. If a speedrunner wants to speedrun a game, they're going to find a way to do it.
Oh
You
yeah.
you don't have to allow for it. They're just going to find a way to get into it and break it.
They will, but still, I would like to kind of give them a nod here and there.
Okay. Yeah. So we're talking a little bit about support and community, and all the different input that you got in there. What is your favorite thing, meme or idea or actual functional thing that you got from the player base when you were developing this game?
I'm glad that someone suggested randomizing the dwarf job.
Dwarf job.
I got a lot of pleasure from that, and that was a community suggestion. I'm sorry,
Mm.
I cannot remember off the top of my head who suggested that, but
Randomizing the dwarf job.
yeah.
I always forget the dwarf job. I remembered it today, but I always forget it.
Yeah.
So you've created something that literally thousands of people have gathered around and enjoy together. How's that make you feel?
Oh, it's still really weird. Like, I'm not used to, for the lack of a better way of expressing it, reaching this many people. And I'm glad that so many people appear to have really embraced it and made it what it is today.
What is it about the free enterprise community that surprises you the most?
Definitely, again, from my experience with like other gaming cultures, I was not expecting it to build up in such a positive and mutually supportive way. I'm
Yeah.
used to seeing like a couple like rogue toxic elements and
Mhm.
like around, or some, just some things that make you go, "Eh." But I've always felt that the free enterprise community generally is pretty supportive, pretty warm, and they just make me feel good. That
Yeah, it's
that
unlike anything else that's out there.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just so happy that this thing that I made with all these people is something that attracts this kind of crowd.
Hmm. What's
And
the
that
most
they all
important?
want to like do things like this channel and
Oh,
amazing stuff like that.
right. What would you say is the most important thing that the community's given you?
Oh, it's just so incredibly rewarding, to be able to. When I first released Free Enterprise, I had no idea it was going to become anything like this.
Mhm.
And I thought, I wasn't sure if anyone's gonna like play it for more than once or twice. So there were like 20 harp songs. I'm like, that's enough. Um, it's I don't know. The free enterprise community has reminded me that I can make things that connect with people,
Hmm.
that reach people,
Yeah.
and I. It's really easy for me to forget that sometimes.
Yeah.
But as
Well,
someone
and
who just strives to create things, that's the best feeling.
after like literal years of hard work on something, it can be pretty easy to feel removed, from the
Yeah.
greater result of it. So yeah, I totally understand that. And you saw it go all the way to GDQ, even.
Yeah, I was blown away that we made it in. Just
Mm.
because I know that randomizers for a long time were not really a presence on the main GDQ schedule.
Mhm.
And then, the Link to the Past random made it in because rightfully so, it's
Right.
the big dog. I
Mhm.
had no idea that I could never expect that Free Enterprise would grow so quickly that it would become the second randomizer to show up
Right. Right. And
barely a year after it was released.
yeah. Yeah.
That blew my mind.
Yeah, right. And there you were, You were
Yeah,
you were watching
yeah,
it go down. How did that
yeah.
feel? Like,
Uh, it was a surreal experience for sure. Um, I was just so I had always kind of had this pipe dream of wanting to come to a GDQ with something that I've made. I thought that it would be like an indie game or whatever if
right.
it
Right.
managed to get some speedrunners on it or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, for it to happen so quickly was just incredible, and getting to meet everyone in from the community who was there was just oh really one of the best things I've ever done, ever gotten to do.
Yeah, and the community growing as fast as it does, and being the really accepting, really supportive community that it is there anything you would like to see more of in the future for the community? Not of the community per se, but is there something that you would like to see for the community at large, in general? Like anything you'd like to see more of, anything different you'd like to see, that sort of thing.
I definitely love that we've seen from time to time elements of the community forming their own kind of mini events or mini variants or their own racing clubs. Just people taking Free Enterprise and making their own thing and having a subculture of the group kind of gather around it. I just really like that Free Enterprise is flexible enough for a lot of people to find their own things that they love about it and to share it. And I kind of we have the Free Enterprise channel, and we ask that if people have ideas for events and stuff they want to run, that they pitch them, and we'll like see if we can get them featured and put them on our channel. And I would definitely love to see a lot of that if there are people who have ideas or schemes. I love seeing what people come up with when they're doing Free Enterprise.
So you've got a team of people who develop with you now, basically.
Mhm.
Quite a nice team from the community. How much do you rely on them even now for feedback?
Extensively. I
Hmm.
mean, there are periods when, because I get busy, I don't talk much on the Discord. But definitely, especially when it comes to gameplay stuff, I need the feedback of people who are actually in the trenches and doing the runs. Because again, that's not the kind of gamer I am.
Right.
I need to know how it feels to them. And then just getting a beat, because there's a million things I could do with Free Enterprise, and talking to Rivers and the testing team and Scala and getting a sense of here's what we should think about next is also really important, because otherwise I could just end up spinning my wheels in 5 different directions at once, and then
Mhm.
nothing comes out of it, right?
Did you ever find yourself taking development feedback personally?
Um, Not really.
Hmm.
There are I try not to let it be like a personal thing,
Well, of
because
course.
to me it's all about like how the system works and whether it does what it's intended to do. There are times when it's like what gets focused on is not necessarily what's most interesting to me at the time. Like
Hmm.
sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, but I've got to fix all these bugs in this, or like clean up this objective system a little bit." But over here, I could put somebody in a hat. It's, that kind of
Sure.
selfishness, can get in the way a little bit. So sometimes if there's pressure to get a certain thing done, I can like kind of be a little, oh, I don't want to do that right now, kind of about it. But I try to try to set that aside
Yeah.
and
Well, that's fair.
make sure it gets done for the health of the game.
What would you say is the most valuable lesson you've learned about working with people through this?
I should do it more.
All right.
I have a tendency to kind of try to do too much stuff on my own or take stuff entirely on my own. But I don't have an army's worth of time. I don't have a full programming team's worth of time.
Okay.
So it's been I think I need to spend some time figuring out how I can spread it out a little bit more, and whether that means client making it open source sooner or trying to get maybe looking at other developers or other people to contribute in other ways. I don't know. It's something I have tried to do, and I think I need to think more about. But yes, I think other people are great because they can do things while I'm doing things, and it uses the same span of time.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, parallel development and all that. So yeah, I need to do more.
As a game developer and this developer of this randomizer, how do you find the balance between working on what you feel is most important to work on versus working on what your testers and your other developers and the workshop helpers suggest that you work on? Like, how do you achieve that balance?
Um, I think I try to take a little bit from each pile as I go. Instead of like, I feel like if I focus entirely on one silo or the other, then I'm neglecting something that needs attention. So I think just by kind of like making a little bit of a compromise and trading off, saying, okay, I will do this little sort of balancing thing, and then over here, the hat. So
I do this important thing so I can put the hat on the character. It's about the hat.
and there's also a little bit of necessity there, just because the things that the things in the hat pile are the things that like give me the build up my momentum a little more, so that I can keep the flow going and get through the stuff that maybe I'm not as jazzed about but needs doing.
So, say I'm a developer. I've
Mhm.
got an idea for a randomizer of a game. What's some real important, like fundamental advice you can give me about how to proceed?
Hmm.
Did I break the robot?
Well, this is probably going to sound weird since you're already in the speedrunning community, but find the speedrunners.
Okay.
Because they're gonna be the ones who make or break what you're doing.
Find the speedrunners. Okay.
Yeah.
What is it about that is so important?
Just well, for me, it was just having that entirely new perspective on how free enterprise is going to be used most of the time, and just because the speedrunners will be able to show you how it's going to be used. They'll be the ones who kind of play through and test and give suggestions about things about what they want to do in the game. And I don't know, for me, Free Enterprise would not exist as it is without that early feedback from the Final Fantasy IV speedrunning community. So I think that's the most important thing that I needed to know when I first released Free Enterprise. Unfortunately, that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, all the way back to the beginning.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is just keep at it and make sure it's fun for you.
Well, that brings us to our final segment. And we're going to have a little fun now. Just going to ask you some random questions. Some questions from the community, I think. What's your favorite game of all time?
I don't have favorites, so Final Fantasy IV.
Okay, well, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I know it's a boring answer, but I mean, for me to make something this extensive,
Oh,
it has to be
sure.
a game I really like.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting if you're like, yeah, FF4 is kind of middling, actually. You know? It's like you spent how long on this thing? Yeah, you know, I'm not a fan. There were other better ones. No. What is your favorite meme from the community of Free Enterprise, or the fandom of Free Enterprise, or the game Free Enterprise in general? What's your favorite meme?
I mean, pretty sure the community is why the spoon flag exists.
Loves the spoon flag. What game are you playing right now? Like, not right now, obviously. Although you could probably do a billion things at once. You're a robot. But what are you finding yourself playing casually right now?
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. My island name is Wendy's.
All right. What do you think an elixir would actually taste like?
You remember those old sodas that had little floating bits of candy in it? Orbits, I think.
God.
That.
Oh, I never want that. I never want that.
You take it because you have to.
Oh no! Why do you make healing so awful?
I don't know. Can you think of a tasty medicine?
What are your thoughts on the b0ardface AI meme?
The b0ardface AI meme. I don't actually think I know that one.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Crash course. Crash course.
Well, I'm not the one to give you that crash course, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. She just wants to know what I think it's like, why is it always that you put in an action for a character and that is immediately the character that gets targeted?
Oh yeah, that's because I hate everyone.
I got plenty of that today myself. Yeah, specifically Baigen. Specifically Baigen. That one really likes to just absolutely demolish whoever's got the menu up on. Something broke. So this is a theoretical question.
Okay.
Say something fundamental broke about the way Free Enterprise was structured, and to fix it, you had to actually get rid of one key item. Which one would you get rid of?
Pink tail.
Just because
just because that I'm thinking how much coding I would need to work around any of the others.
Get rid of the pigtail, says Couch. I knew you were going to say pink tail too. Yeah. What's your favorite FF4 enemy? Not boss, just enemy in general.
Enemy. I've always had a fondness for the vanilla imp.
Just
the plain old imp. I was always happy when I loaded up Final Fantasy IV, and I would go out into the world, and it's like, it's the imp, and it's like the imp from Final Fantasy 1.
Isn't it actually, like, in essence, the same sprite? Just
yeah, pretty much. It's like the goblin with the little dagger, the curved dagger, pointing the same way. Yeah.
What is your favorite hobby outside of gaming?
Ooh, musical theater.
Excuse me?
Musical theater. So people who were at Limit Break with me would have seen me busting out some Next to Normal at karaoke night.
Oh my god. Well, okay. Is this something that you've always done?
I guess since I didn't start until after university, but yeah, so I guess 10 years-ish now. Community musical theater I've been involved in. Yeah.
As a performer, I'm assuming?
Yes, mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah. It's funny. I actually I graduated from college as an actor, and Yeah, yeah. And my main job is I was the lighting director for Stomp.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
yeah, yeah.
Nice.
No, that's
Nice.
crazy. I worked on Jersey Boys too.
Oh,
As
amazing.
a
Yeah.
spot guy. Yeah, it was. No, that's amazing. Oh, now I want to talk about that for like 5 hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this is clearly the situation to do it in.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Musical theater. What's your favorite musical of all time?
Rent.
Rent.
Yep.
Wow.
Sorry
Okay.
if you don't want to talk to me anymore.
No. I was a Rent head back in the 90s. Like I totally get
nice.
it.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's Into the Woods.
Oh,
Yeah.
classic.
I'm a filthy Sondheim fan. I love Stephen Sondheim. Yeah. Rent. No, that I mean it was so unlike anything else that came out of its time. So I mean, it definitely has its place in history.
Definitely, yeah.
Sure. So going back to more like you-centric things here. What is it like to be a square of cardboard pasted onto a robot?
I mean, I feel like people say I'm like square. Not very fun, you know? Like I lack dimension.
But you're in musical theater. That's fun.
It is. Yes. I have layers. Corrugated layers.
Yeah, look at that. There's 3 dimensions right there. You got depth.
I am deep. I am about 2 millimeters deep.
Yeah, no, yeah. The corrugated. Yeah. Very finely corrugated. All right. Well, and this is of course an odd question to be asking a piece of cardboard pasted onto a robot head, but what's your favorite food?
Lesser papers.
Dang it!
Like parchment.
but that pre-lined stuff, it's just nom 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 nom.
With a nice coating of tissue on top. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
Tissue is the garnish, right?
Yep.
What's your favorite FF4 character?
Ooh. Probably Kane.
Kane. Okay.
Yeah, Ridge is a close second. I remember once when I was a kid and I was taking swimming lessons, one time when we were waiting to get in the pool, I would wait in Kane's jump pose. So it's probably Kane.
Would you ever like to see a version of FF4 that centers around Kane?
I mean, I guess I could make that. Let's see, what would you do? Optimist would be fine. Then you get abducted and be brainwashed. Then you do a lot of evil stuff. Then you go fight Dark Knight Cecil, which is easy because he's already programmed as an enemy. Then you take Rosa back to Zot, and you stand there for a lot of cutscenes with fiends. This has potential.
Right?
Yeah, the Kane edit.
No, the Kane edit. Swimmy says he protect, he attack, but most of all, he stab in the back. All right. What's the most annoying sound from a game that you can think of?
Annoying sound from a game.
The most annoying sound effect from any game that you can think of.
Anytime Daisy talks in Mario Kart.
I
think specifically, "Hi, I'm Daisy," or something like that.
Yeah. No.
Honorable shout out goes to, I remember back in university, some friends and I were playing, I think, one of the 007 games on the GameCube. And not only it's a soundtrack full of da-na, 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 da, every time you pick up a special item, the sound effect goes da-na, da-na, da-na-na. So that entire game is like an asynchronous series of da-na, da-na, da-na-na.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Board, this has been a fantastic time. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Did you have fun?
I did. Did you find out anything, or was that mostly just strange?
I mean, honestly, it was all it was all just pieced together. I'm getting a feed from the community. Like there's no censors. I'm just literally talking what other people say right now.
Amazing.
Yeah. I had no preparation, nothing. No, nothing at all. Yeah. But no, it's been great. Is there anything that you would like to say to the community listening? Anything else that you would like to talk about while we still have you on?
Mostly just thank you again, every single person who has made Free Enterprise what it is today. It has grown so astronomically beyond anything I could have ever conceived it would be, and it's just been incredible, and I have all of you to thank for it, for making it what it is and helping it to continue to grow each day.
Rivers wants you to know that now the James Bond sound effect will be the Free Enterprise sub alert.
All right. So Playable Goldbest, next release. Got it.
Beautiful. b0ardface, thank you so much. I've had a blast today.
No problem. Thanks.
I wasn't ready.
Thank you so much.
Well, there's no way to transition well off that. I'm still laughing.
So good.
Oh boy. Board, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to hang out with us, and thank you so much, Muppets, for hosting tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So here to announce what we have going on next week. Happy to announce that community member Vonnie Vaughn will be stepping into the hosting booth and is going to be hosting an interview with Scala Kitty next Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern. So really hope you all will join us. Really looking forward to that. Want to just throw a shout out again and thank you to Board. Just an amazing interview, and thanks again to Muppets for hosting.
Fanny Pan! Yeah.
Yeah. Woo! And thank you all of you for your support so far as we continue to go on, and hope everyone has a fantastic evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Land leeches.